Garamendi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to focus on the ELRAN. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to focus on the ELRAN system and see if we can get this thing moving along. Mr. Fega and Mr. Shum, a few questions, probably with rather straightforward answers, just so we can get this stuff on the record. If I understand your testimony correctly, the former LORAN C infrastructure could be rather easily repurposed to support ELRAN. Is that correct?
I probably have to argue with easily, but it could certainly be done. Of course, the existing infrastructure, which hasn't been operated since 2010, is decaying. So Coast Guard would have to look hard at what it's going to take to bring it back. But what ELRAN does is go from LORAN C to more modern electronics, fundamentally.
Okay, if the technology, the greatest benefit of the ELRAN is that it would provide a backup timing signal, which is then essential for the position and navigation. So if there are multiple towers, you'd have both timing, position, and navigation.
Takes more towers to do the navigation job, but I think, as Ms. Van Dyke pointed out, there are better backups for navigation and position than there are for timing. I've been in a number of meetings in the last few months with infrastructure providers, some of whom are surprised to learn that they have a dependence on GPS timing because they're getting it from a supplier who is dependent on it. Therefore, they are dependent on it, which is why DHS says 13 of our 16 critical infrastructures are dependent.
So just 4 towers could give us nationwide timing.
Timing for fixed items. Moving objects would not be able to do timing with that few number of stations.
And what would be necessary to provide for moving?
19 stations would give complete PNT coverage of the United States, and so some significant portion of that, 10 or 12, would move toward that goal.
The number 40 million has been tossed around today. That would be for the 4 stations for timing only.
And makes the assumption that some of the towers and stations and equipment would be used in the short term.
Available. I understand one such station is now up and operating in Mr. Lobiondo's district.
In Wildwood, New Jersey, yes, sir.
Wildwood, New Jersey. Are there any problems with that operation?
Chuck is actually involved with that, so I'll invite him to respond.
Mr. Garamendi, the station is operating. It would be fully autonomous and unmanned in its fully operational capability. We have a caretaker that comes in and turns it on and turns it off. It's not set up to operate continuously 24/7 right now. It's because it's been off since 2010, but it is fully capable of making that transition with a small investment.
I did see a demonstration of that system at the Naval Observatory last week, rather impressive. My next question goes to Ms. Van Dyke. Your testimony is interesting, but it reminds me of so much testimony I heard. We're studying it. Could you be a little more precise in the timing of the study and the timing of when you intend to actually deal with this, since this problem was actually noticed in 1998? And in 2008, the executive branch of government made a decision that ELRAN was the solution. So where are we now 7 years later?
Yes, thank you for your question, and perhaps Mr. Rascott also wants to chime in. But we are working with our partners in DHS and in DOD as part of a complementary PNT Tiger team. So that was associated with the Federal Register notice that we issued earlier this year to have public and industry feedback. And as I mentioned in my testimony, we do have a space-based PNT executive committee coming up in September, which will discuss this topic. This will be one of the primary topics on their agenda with the Deputy Secretary of Defense and Deputy Secretary of Transportation.
Do you consider this to be a significant national security issue, that we could lose GPS, single point of failure?
I do. So I was involved back in 2001 with the Volpe National Transportation system study on the vulnerability of GPS for transportation, so well aware for a long time of the vulnerabilities of GPS and our significant dependence not only for transportation but other critical infrastructure that's been mentioned. And I do think it is a problem that we need to address and resolve.
When would it be addressed if it's critical? So you have a study coming up, you have a meeting coming up in September to discuss what was discussed 7 years ago.
Well, the complementary P&T Tiger team has really been looking at what's changed in the past 7 years, both from increased dependency on GPS, other technologies that have been developed, as well as increased threats to the GPS system. And again, this will be a major subject of discussion at that meeting with all of the information that we've collected.
You just had a meeting. What was the outcome of that meeting? We should meet again? Was that the outcome?
I'm not sure which meeting you're referring to.
I think you, in your testimony, you said you had a request for information that came out.
We
200 people responded,
right.
And the result was, let's meet.
So we have a scheduled executive committee meeting in September that will talk about the results from the Federal Register notice as well as the evaluation of technologies that have been developed.
Mr. Scott, your comments on these issues that I raised?
Sir, we're moving forward. I mean, as Karen outlined,
Yeah, well, the Earth is turning too, so.
Yes, sir. But we were taking some important steps to determine what's literally changed since we last looked at this. And I think one of the things that was never looked at previously was the user's input, the folks that actually will receive the signal. And that's what the DOT notice to the Federal Register asked. You know, sort of almost from a Kevin Costner thing. If we build it, will you come? Because one of the things that I think is important to notice is that even if we got the signal in the air tomorrow, it really wouldn't change anything because the receivers aren't there to receive it. And we're sort of working through those issues. And that's what we are asking people. Is this a critical issue to you?
Mr. Shum, are the receivers available?
Yes, sir. The receivers are available today.
No, I understand that, sir, but
That's not what you said.
So they're not available.
You said they're not available.
well,
Are they available or not available?
they are available, sir, but most people do not have them.
Because there is no e-learning
Fair enough.
signal.
They're available in Europe and other places where they're using.
Oh, what are the other places? Europe, Russia, China?
I'm not sure of all of them.
They're available in Europe, Russia, and China. Is that correct, Mr. Falga?
Yes, and I think the Japanese are also building out.
Oh, yes, the Japanese too. U.S. Maritime says they want the system. You're aware of that, I suppose.
Yes, sir.
Why are we getting the runaround here? Mr. Scott, why are we getting the runaround?
I don't have a good answer for that, sir, but I will tell you that the administration is pushing forward and we're working through the Space-Based PNT Executive Committee to come up with the correct solution. We hope to move forward on that. We
God
look forward
help
to
us,
the
another
results.
committee.
Sir, as established under the Federal Radio Navigation Plan.
Can you give me some estimate of when a decision would be made by that committee?
I will tell you that the next meeting of that committee is in September. I can't speak for the leadership of that committee.
Who are the leaders of the committee?
It is chaired by the Deputy Secretary of Defense and the Deputy Secretary of Transportation, as per the Federal Radio Navigation Plan.
Ms. Van Dyke, are they expected to attend the meeting?
Yes, they are.
What day in September?
September 3rd.
I yield back.
I think the ranking member.